What's going on, guys? Frost here, and I'm back with another video. In today's video, we'll be doing an in-depth Karthus jungle guide. Karthus is getting a lot of traction lately again with the jungle experience buffs. He's pretty much one of the strongest, if not the strongest AP jungler experience-wise. We're gonna hit level 6 at about 6 minutes in your average game, so that's pretty damn good. Also, you scale immensely, so overall, the only difficult thing about Karthus really is just landing your Q. That's about it. So yeah, let's just get right into the runes. So for the rune page setup on Karthus, it's Dark Harvest, which is just really good with his ultimate and executes in general. If you get people low enough, your Q is going to do massive damage, your ult's going to execute better, so it's going to get more kills. So Dark Harvest is just the one you want. It's pretty easy to stack as well, so yeah. Moving on, you want Cheap Shot. The reason you want Cheap Shot is because if you wall somebody and then land a Q, Cheap Shot's going to activate on that as well. So that's pretty good. The other two here are fairly useless. You can go Taste of Blood for a little bit of healing, but in general, you will have Ravenous Hunter for that. Now, on this one, I tend to just go Eyeball Collection on Karthus, because you do not want to be standing still hitting a ward for like ages in general, since you're pretty squishy and you don't have any mobility. So if you get caught out on that ward, you're pretty much dead anyway. You can clear some, but in general, just Eyeball Collection for straight up damage just tends to work out better. And getting an eyeball per champion takedown on Karthus is pretty easy due to his ultimate. Like, for example, if you were to ult, you get 5 assists basically. So eyeball collection stacks pretty easily. So that's the setup there. Ravenous Hunter, right, is also, some of you might think, why don't you go Ultimate Hunter? Because Karthus ultimate has a pretty long cooldown and you want that back more often. The reason you want Ravenous is because you need that healing. If you don't get the Ravenous Hunter, you will not heal, and this will cost you a lot just in general in your game. A lot of healing when it comes to clearing, and just in team fights having this healing as well. This is just really the key rune here that you have to get, else you're gonna struggle pretty much the entire game with everything, and it's definitely not what you want. Now moving on from that, you have a few options. There is still Presence of Mind. Even though it doesn't give ultimate cooldown anymore, it does give you mana, which is still very beneficial. If fights go on longer, you use a lot of mana due to your E if you want to cast that, so takedowns will refresh that, and that's Presence of Mind will help with this. Also, getting the increased mana, if you were to, for example, get an assist quite early on, is going to help you with your jungle clear as well, pre-jungle item. So that's still a viable choice, and then Coup de Grace will help you with executing people with your ultimate in combination with Dark Harvest, and even a Luden's proc, so this could definitely help you there. So that's one of the options. Now, the other option that I personally prefer more is the combination of Magical Footwear and or Perfect Timing. Especially Perfect Timing now, because it will each takedown, the cooldown will lower by 120 seconds. So again, Karthus ultimate, easy to get takedowns with, gets assists with, all that type of stuff. Perfect Timing can help you a lot in, for example, dodging some early invade from like a Kha'Zix or something like that. That's really beneficial, so it's one of these two. What I tend to do is if I'm against a non-aggressive jungler, I'll just go Magical Footwear, since I can just farm and this will save me some money there. If I'm against an aggressive jungler, I'll most likely go for Perfect Timing, just to make sure that I can survive one of the engages. And also, you'll get this way before 14 minutes on Karthus, that's not a big deal. And then Cosmic Insight. Cosmic Insight here is to just reduce the CDR and give you CDR, or sorry, not reduce CDR, but reduce the cooldown, and then just give you CDR on everything else. This also works with Zonias and your summoner spells, so this is very, very good. And I like this setup a lot more than the maximum mana one, because with your Ludens, and if you manage your mana correctly, you'll be able to get away with it regardless. Now for this one, is double Adaptive Force, pretty much just to get the fastest jungle clear in you can, the most damage you can. You definitely want to build as much damage as possible to make sure your ultimates actually get those kills. And then the defensive one is literally just what you're facing. So if you're facing like physical damage, get armor. If not, get magic resist. And that's pretty much the rune page. So if you have questions on this, put that in the comments below. And without further ado, let's get right into the item build. Alright, so for the item build, we have the Hunter's Talisman. This is by far the best start on Karthus, since you're not auto-attacking pretty much anyway. Like, you can get a few in here or there, but in general, it's just for the healing, like Q damage, all that, E damage. This is just the one. And then you want to follow that with a refillable, easy. Now, you want to initially start with a Warding Trinket. Then you walk to the buff you're not starting at. You want to ward that buff, then reset at about 40 to 50-ish seconds. 50 seconds is usually when I'm back. And then you can switch this warding trinket out for this, because then you'll have the sweeping lens to know if like something is warded if you're ganking after a full clear. Now a Karthus full clear ends at about 3 minutes 10-ish, so you'll be level 4 at that point, which is definitely way ahead of the enemy jungler, unless the enemy jungler is playing Nidalee. That's one of the only champions that I can actually keep up. So if you have an Oracle Lens, then you can sweep and gank bot or top, for example, and then you will know if it's warded. It probably isn't warded, but it could be, and then you just gank the lane, you'll be ahead, maybe get a kill or two, or force them to back, get a scuttle, and yeah, Oracle Lens just helps you seeing that vision. If you know it's warded, then they are going to play back, and that's just a little bit annoying. Now moving on from this, the jungle item you want to go for obviously is the AP one. You want to get Blue Smite as well. Getting Blue Smite is very beneficial because this will allow you to land your Qs a lot easier on targets you smite, also keep up with them as well. So that's really just what you want. Helps you burst, helps you do that type of stuff. Also Blue Smite synergizes really well with Dark Harvest. So if somebody is low, you can Blue Smite and proc the Dark Harvest and then increase the damage output you have on them to potentially just kill them straight off without even landing a Q. So this just synergizes the best with Karthus' kit. Now for the boots, you have the like Sork's Magic Pen is really all you're looking for. You want to get this just to increase your damage of your ultimate, increase your damage in general really, and there's no other option than this. Now obviously if you have magical footwear, this might like have a slight delay on it. It could happen depending on how many takedowns you get, how many ultimates you get off, or fights you get. It's not a big deal. Usually if I don't have the, like if I have the money but don't have the magical footwear boots yet, then I'll just build into a Dark Seal with like an amplifying tome building towards my next item. Now I mentioned Dark Seal as well. Dark Seal is a very, very good item on Karthus because you can easily stack this, again with your ultimate getting a lot of assists and kills. Pretty easily, you'll usually have 5 assists every fight. So that's pretty good there. So Dark Seal is definitely good. Also upgrading this into a Magi's if you're doing well is really going to snowball a game through the roof. So if you have the option or the money to buy a Dark Seal here or there, then make sure to do it because it's very, very beneficial. Now for your first main item after your Sorks, there are 2 options. You have the option of going Morello, or you can go for, where is it? Ability power. Or Liandry's. Either one of these two. The situations where you want to get, depending on, like it just depends on the situation. Morello is good against very squishy teams on the enemy side. So if they have like 4 or 5 squishies, something like that, Morello is good there. Morello is also good if they have a lot of healing. So let's say Vladimir, Kane, whatever, champions like that, just healing champions, Morello is good there. If they don't have a lot of healing based champions and they have more so tanky team, then Liandry's is better. Because Liandry's will then do more damage for you in general. So that's really the difference there. So with healing or squishy enemy team comps, get Morello. If not, get Liandry's. That's just the way to go. Now, after these two, you pretty much every single game want to get a Zhonya's at this point. Zhonya's is a very, very strong item on Karthus because this allows you to stay in fights longer. You have the synergy of, like, you leave your Eon whilst in Zhonya's as well, so that does damage. So they have to really hard commit to kill you, which is a real pain in the ass for the enemy team to do. So they have to hard commit to kill a Karthus in the first place. Then if they were to get the kill after the Zhonya's, after you kiting them out, all that type of stuff, then they still have to deal with a Karthus passive and then probably a Karthus ultimate unless you let the team fight with the ultimate. So it's really, really difficult for the enemy team to deal with the Zhonya's on Karthus. It's going to be, if you play it properly, it's going to be deadly to them. And this also, if you have Zhonya's and did build a Magi's in a certain game, then you're easily going to be able to keep your Magi stacks up, which is also very, very good. So the synergy of just like this build right here, it's just like 5 items if you were to build a Magi's. This is really high. Now let's say if you have the Morello here, you're against a squishy team, you have this setup. This is going to prevent you from getting assassinated. Now this will give you a high AP value, and then with this double magic pen against a squishy team, you can easily afford to go for Death Cap. Because this will increase your maximum AP, especially if you have Magi's, if you have a well stacked Magi's as well. So this is going to give you easily like 800 to 900 ability power, and it's going to be a very, very strong build. ulting against a squishy team setup like this is pretty much going to insta-kill the entire enemy team, and you're going to win a team fight like that late game. So that's pretty good there. Now, if you don't have the squishy team or like the Morello in general, then something like the Liandry's, you can go death cap, but in most cases with Liandry's, it's better to just go for a Void Staff at this point. You want to get that Magic Pen, you want to get, because you build Liandry's into tanks. Tanks build more towards the magic resist heavy side or just tanky stat side, so having more Magic Pen then benefits you. Now, with a max tech Magi's, this is going to give you plenty of ability power and just damage into the enemy team, into the enemy tank comp. If somehow you lose your Magi stacks or you're dying a little bit more often, you can always still sell the Magi's and then buy a death cap to increase your ability power that way. So instead of having the ability power increase from Magi's, then you will have the ability power increase from death cap, and that's going to synergize very well. So it's a pretty standard-ish build. It has like the core item, so it's these two, and then a core item in Morello or Liandry's. Follow that up with a Zonias every single time, because Zonias is amazing on Karthus. And then it's just Death Cap or Void Staff, with depending if you have Magi's or not. If you don't have Magi's, you can easily go Death Cap here as well, if you were the option, if they don't really have Magic Resist yet. And yeah, that's pretty much the build for Karthus. If you guys have any questions on this as well, put those in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer those questions for you. And if you guys have enjoyed this video so far, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. It helps me out a lot in getting this video out there. So yeah, let's just get right into the gameplay section now. Alright, welcome to the gameplay section of this guide. As you can see, I am playing Karthus, of course, into a Gragas, which honestly is a fine matchup. Anything for Karthus is really a good matchup, as long as you can avoid getting invaded on. So really the way to do that is placing a ward down and seeing if they go for the invade or not. That's really that simple. You full clear so fast that it's nearly impossible to actually get invaded from a level 3 champion. So usually they will have to, like, if the enemy has to clear 3 camps, they would have to do that really fast if they still want to catch you with the invade, because you have to take walking time into consideration as well. So let's say they were to clear the 3 camps that are the quickest, red, blue, and Gromp. For most champions, those are the quickest camps. Then they will still have to walk from red to blue to Gromp, and then to your jungle to even invade you, which is possible. Well, actually, let's say they can also do wolves, right? So let's say they do one side, they do the blue side of the map, and that's the quickest one. Now you, based on the enemy champion, you can notice and start on the other side of the map and do the same clear. Now, if they are red side, for example, you can start your blue buff and clearing towards your red side. If they invade that, you have a bot lane there, so then they will not be able to invade you either. Plus, you're going to be there so fast that they would not have even been able to steal your red. The only thing they can do to invade you effectively is go from blue to maybe Gromp if they're red side, and then invade your red buff straight after on level 2, and by that time they can make it in time to get it. But this is what placing an early ward fixes for you, so this is why you always kind of want to place your early ward in a position that sees your buff. Because if the enemy is going to invade you, they're always going to go for your buff camp. There is no way someone is going to invade you early game and take your Raptor Clamp and leave your red buff alone, for example. That's just not going to happen. So the ideal situation you want to go for is always ward the other buff that you're not starting on. As Karthus, that is. So you just ward your red, see if they're going to go for it. If they're going to go for it and you see they have like blue buff, for example, then you can still mirror jungle them really quickly, and then you can take their entire bot side, for example. If you're red side, you can take the entire bot side whilst they only take your red, for example, just because you're that fast. So that's something you keep in mind. If they were to go from blue to my red, for example, and I have a ward on it, and I can just go these 3 camps, see that he does that, and then take his entire bot side, maybe gank bot lane and reset and do it like start and full clear. That's an option there. Keep that in mind with the early warding. Now this game is a little bit of an exception just because of the fight that's going on here, so I have to go for like a fight. I kind of have to help my teammates a little bit in this situation. You do not want to just ignore them and place your ward and reset. So in this game, I got there a little bit late. I still had to reset. I kind of don't want to start with lower HP. So I'm going to go for this and place my ward down in a path that Gragas could walk to my red. I didn't have like extra time to walk up to ward this. So that's really the reason. Now, bot lane places a very nice ward on his red buff as well, so I do have pretty good vision. And I am just gonna go run to my blue. My bot lane starts it for me in this situation, which is really good. It's just a little bit of the delay, but ideally you want to back at about 50 seconds. That's when you want to start pressing recall. By that time, you're gonna make it easily to your next, like to your buff camp, to your blue buff. So 50 seconds, keep that in mind. Now, for Karthus, the clear is pretty simple. You just want to make sure you kite your camps as effectively as possible. As you can see, I'm making the Gromp walk wherever I can. This avoids me taking some damage here and there. The same thing counts here. Just try to make him walk a little bit more so you can dodge the most damage possible. You don't want to just stand there and tank it that often. In the early game, that could still happen just because you don't have the damage output for it. But ideally, you just want to be able to kite your camps, as you see me do right here, whilst being able to Q and E them. Do not keep your E on permanently. With a blue buff, you can afford to keep it on longer, but you have to make sure you have enough mana to be able to use your Qs, because that's the fastest way you're going to clear. Using your E is going to speed it up a little bit, but it's not that significant. And as you can see right here, I'm going to finish my full clear at about 3 minutes 10. So between like 3 minutes and 3 minutes 10, you can get your full clear done, which means you have level 4 pressure for the initial scuttle. This is one of the biggest things you need to, you can contest, because there is no other jungler in the game that I can think. No, actually there's no other jungler in the game except for Nidalee. A perfectly played Nidalee can contest you level 4 on a full clear wise. She's gonna be like 3 or 4 seconds slower, but Karthus finishes between like 3.5 and 3.10-ish. And Nidalee finishes between like 3.10 and 3.15. So she is one of the champions that can contest the Karthus when it comes to the scuttle. But otherwise you're going to be a level ahead when contesting the scuttle. And this gives you a massive lead. Now the way you would play this if you were to get contested is just to keep them at a distance. Don't just go suicide walking in with Karthus. That's not what you want. Now I've pretty much figured that the Gragas was clearing down. So I'm just going to quickly check his camps. If he maybe skipped 1 or 2. Doesn't really cost me anything. Now we see the Gragas here on bot side, of course, which is a little bit unfortunate. Predator jungler is always gonna just go for a quick back, get his Predator boots and look for a gank. So that's what he did. He did these 3 camps, reset, and then went here. In this case, I could have gone from blue buff and cleared this entire bot side as well if I opted for that. But the fact is that Misfortune Leona have high priority in that lane. So it's really easy for them to collapse this if I were to go for their bot side. So that's why I just opted to go for a full clear instead. Full clear on Karthus is really never a bad option. Now, bot lane died. I'm just going to look for some pressure on this Ornn right now. The ideal thing with Karthus might sound a bit shady, but it's always to just try to pressure a gank at least when it comes to finishing your full clear. Because if you pressure a gank and get some minion experience, as you can see me get right now, I'll get some minion experience. This pretty much means that you finish level 6 after your second full clear. Your second full clear will be about 6 minutes-ish. So finishing, like getting level 6 at 6 minutes is a massive spike. So that's always, you're going to be full HP pretty much guaranteed if you guide your camps properly when you full clear your initial clear. And then with that, you can always try to gank a lane, maybe help it push out if your ally is struggling or anything like that. Always try to do something to get some minion experience from the lane, because this is going to allow you to have a massive, massive power spike when it comes to the your experience. As you see, I'm almost level 5 right now. This is about the spot you want to be in experience-wise with your second clear start, because this is going to net you level 6, which you will see in a second here. Now, on my first back, I always like to pick up a Dark Seal pretty early on Karthus, just because like your ultimate gives you 3 stacks if you can get those. And also upgrading that into a Magi's, once you have 10 stacks on it, it's going to give you 10% move speed, which is a pretty key thing. Now, you do not want to be building Magi's or Dark Seal if you are a Karthus, like not that experienced or a little bit suicidal with Karthus, because then it's obviously not going to be too effective. As you can see me like right here, I'm just going to keep clearing. Right now, if they were to do Drake, or the Gragas were to do Drake with his bot lane, for example, I do know that Gragas isn't the best at taking Dragon solo early, so I'm not that worried. But the first Dragon on Karthus is one of those Drakes that you could give up into certain bot lane matchups, like this one, for example. Misfortune is pretty dominant early, whilst Aphelios takes over later, of course. So you might have to give that up in some situations. Now you can see me off this camp right here at 6 minutes. I'll hit level 6. Just simply because of the experience that I got from top lane, and that's actually this is the key thing. I just barely hit it. Just barely. If I didn't take the experience, I would have to do one more camp, which comes out to be pretty awkward because there's no other camp for me to clear unless I steal one of the enemy jungler's camps. So if you were to full clear and then invade, for example, their top side right here, if like the Gromp / Wolves would have been up or something like that, then I could have just taken a Wolf camp, taken a Gromp, reset with that. That would have been enough experience as well to net me almost level 5, and then full clearing from there will still hit you a 6-minute level 6. And that's really the aim with Karthus. Try to hit that as fast as possible. Level 6 is a very, very high pressure. And yeah, that's just one thing to keep in mind. Now, we see the Scuttle spawning on top side, so I'm instantly just going to try to go for the contest on this one. I'm just mainly playing out the early game, a little bit more farm heavy instead of going for like ganks. I will try some ganks, but I'm clearing towards the top side more than towards the bot side in this specific game, and bot side's a little bit struggling, so Urgot's doing pretty well for that matter though, like he's getting some solo kills, which is pretty nice. So, now from this stage onward, we get a pretty big power spike. Also, actually, the fight on bot lane was happening. This is something with Karthus that is a thing you always have to keep an eye out on your lanes. You can do this one of two ways. The easier way, I suppose, is to just use F keys, which if you press any F keys, then they will instantly hop to a champion. I don't know if Practice Tool does this. No, Practice Tool doesn't do this. Practice Tool has other keybinds for it. But F keys, if you just press the F keys, you'll jump to different lanes, different champions, and you can quickly, by just flicking through your F keys, see on the minimap what's going on, and then space is obviously going to go back to you. You can quickly see what's going on with Karthus, so you always want to keep an eye out for fights, keep an eye out for the HP bars above your minimap or wherever you've placed them, on your teammates to see if they're dropping quicker or anything. Just keeping that awareness with Karthus ult is a very, very big thing. Now we see this here. I was at this point probably watching bot lane. So we see the Thresh dive, or we see the Thresh get dove. Leona right here takes a little bit too much damage. Now I just reset at this point, so I wait with my ultimate before I buy my Phoenix Codex, because just getting the extra 35 ability power is going to pretty much guarantee me this kill. I do believe she barely levels up, but just because I have Dark Harvest plus the Phoenix Codex, barely I get the kill on the Leona. This is the good thing about Karthus. You pretty much do not get punished. Well, you can get punished, but in general you do not get punished for farming a lot, because you do have your ultimate to still be relevant to your team when it comes to, for example, dives. If the enemy were to dive your bot lane or anything like that, you are still very relevant. So clearing your jungle, and actually speed clearing your jungle, becomes a higher priority, and it's definitely something you want to play for. Now at this point, I did get the kill, and I did get 380-ish extra gold. The only thing is, I kind of wanted to do Dragon pretty quickly, and I also was pretty wary of Gragas, where he would be. He might be in my bot side taking my camps, or he might be doing Drake. So I definitely just want to run there as fast as possible. It saves me a little bit of time. I was just thinking about that in this situation. Now we just saw the Gragas clear my Gromp there. I saw him instantly, and I just started pinging, assist ping and all that, to make sure that my mid laner and my ADC were aware, so they would respond to him. So Gragas at least would have to burn like a flash or something to get out. Now with a Camille mid lane, of course, this is going to be a very good thing, because she has a lot of roam pressure. So that's good for me there. But because we force the Gragas out, Dragon instantly becomes pretty free. So I just instantly go for this Drake. Objective control is still very key, especially if you're playing a farming jungler. You can put yourself ahead, but try to keep that objective control strong, because this is going to allow your team to get a little bit stronger as well. So right now you see me again here just clearing my camps. As you can see me also walking with my camps to the next camp to save as much time as I possibly can, to make sure that it's the shortest time between camps, and the clear gets sped up that way. Now, I believe I have 1,000 gold, which is going to finish my jungle item here with another amplifying tome. I do have my ultimate up right here, so if this fight were to go out, again, with that ultimate up, you're gonna look for pressure, you're gonna look for situations where you can actually use it to get some kills. So I do believe that I'm just gonna walk the bot lane here. We see some fights going on. At this point, there's nothing up for me. All my Gromp's up. I could maybe clear this, but that would be a little bit too time waste. You don't want to get too greedy sometimes with your clear. Even though you do it pretty quick, you still have to keep in mind that you're gonna have to be at certain situations. So now I'm kind of figuring that they're trying to dive our bot lane. So I'm just gonna stand here, use my sweeper to know if there's any wards here, see what they're gonna do. Now, sadly, the Aphelios on the other side, like, kind of walks up too far. If he were to stand, like, here, this would be way better. Because that forces the Leona and the Misfortune to dive a lot further. So that was a little bit of a mistake by him. But mainly my role right now is just to zone this, get as much free damage on Gragas and or Ziggs as I possibly can. Before, like, this completely, like, collapses. They still have to clear this this minion wave before this dive really becomes realistic. So I have some time right now, as you can see me just poking this Gragas as much as possible whilst they're clearing this wave. This is a very big thing when it comes to getting dove. Now, the way you see me position here is very important and a very big thing to note. As I said, the way Aphelios should have positioned is the way I am positioning right now. I am going to stand in the most awkward spot, so they would have to dive the furthest. And also, you have to keep in mind that with Karthus, you have your passive, so they have to get out of that one as well. So right now, what I'm just doing, I'm trying to clear the wave initially to try to maybe stop the entire dive from happening. And I just place my wall in such a way that they really can't do much. Now, again, there, Leona misses it. She barely doesn't die to my Qs, which is unfortunate. Then I started ulting to maybe get the kill, but yeah, the stopwatch kind of screwed me over on that one. My ult still did some damage, and for that matter, like, they still took some more damage, so they have a harder time diving. Right now, I'm just, well, this Gragas is kind of just inting. He's there by himself. There's not much he can do. I'm gonna flash forward here. If I would have gotten the auto attack with red buff slow, then this guy would have died guaranteed, but yeah, because the Camille was coming, I would not have flashed forward otherwise because I didn't really have that much mana. But that's the way you want to play a dive, or just, like, yeah, getting dove in this situation, for example. Always try to stand in the most safest way with Karthus in any team fight. Don't just use your passive to use your passive, which means dying, because that's the suboptimal play. You always want to try to live as long as possible. Your Qs do a massive amount of damage, so make sure to capitalize on that. That's a very big thing to remember in any fight, and you will see me do that in more fights this game as well still. Just positioning myself in such a way that they have a hard time getting to me and I have a good time doing damage to them. Now right here, because my jungle item is completed, I don't have to worry about any more mana. So even though I didn't have any mana, I can just easily power through my jungle clear, get all my mana back, as you can see, and there's no issues there. So finishing that's really easy. Now level 9, which is a pretty good spot for me to be in. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm just looking towards invading the Gragas, putting my pressure down, because with a Camille mid as well, that's another big thing about this. If you have a high pressure mid laner like Camille, or maybe a Talon, or anything like that, you definitely want to play aggressive towards the enemy jungle, and then also, of course, ask for them to come. You can either, if they don't want to work with you or listen to your pings, play with them. So you just clear your camps, and wherever they're going, you are going there as well. But if they are higher elo or usually listen a little bit better, then it's also a good thing to just assist ping, go for an invade, maybe get some vision in the enemy jungle, or just take their camps, because you can really take their camps really fast. So if there were to be bot lane, their entire topside jungle would be gone, for example. Something like that. That's really a big thing to keep in mind. Now right here, I assist ping this, catch the Gragas out, which is really good. Now I kind of assist ping top lane as well for a dive. Urgot died pretty quickly, but with Camille, I could have still dove this. In this case, Camille went mid lane, which, I mean, is fine. It's just, yeah. I'm not going to solo dive that. I'm just going to go for the objective right now, which is the Rift Herald, which is good. Now, Camille does come from for this one, so that's pretty nice. We see an Ornn right now. I'm just going to keep focusing on the objective, because I know my mid laner is there, so I'm not that scared. The only problem with this play right now is we lose dragon pressure, but the thing you have to keep in mind this specific game, and this is also something you have to think about in your games as well, our bot lane is not doing well right now. They got ganked, they got camped really, and it's not ideal for them. Misfortune is 4-0, so we have almost no bot pressure, and they have a lot of bot pressure right now. We have an Urgot that's dead without teleport, so there's actually no possible way for us to realistically contest that dragon. So I'm just going to have to drop this one and opt to go for the Rift Herald instead, just to take that. We see an Ornn walk up, Camille walks with me, we get the Rift Herald, they get the dragon. This dragon was not contestable, so it is what it is. Can't really do much about that one. Now this is another, like, a small trick with your build. If you have a certain amount of gold, which is a little bit awkward to buy, for example, a Haunting Guise or a Oblivion Orb, in either or situation, this game I definitely want to go for the Liandry's, just because they're really tanky. Like, the Ornn is really tanky, this guy can get really tanky, Leona is pretty tanky. So this is a way more like tanky team setup, and that's why Leandris is like just in general a lot better. But like if you're not sure, or if the game, like if you're like if it's so and so, you can also just buy a blasting one, since blasting one builds into both the Morello and the Leandris, which is very nice. So that's a little bit of like a thing you can do if you don't have the gold for example, a hunting guy straight up, or a a Oblivion Orb straight up. Now my entire jungle camp's respawning. Aphelios took my camp, which denies my level 11, which is a little bit annoying. But you just need to make sure that as Karthus you keep speed clearing your camps. Now you don't have to clear from bot side up every single time. If you were to have spent a little bit more time maybe invading or ganking or putting some pressure somewhere on the map, then you can always switch up your clear from, for example, top side down if your entire jungle is up, because your entire jungle is pretty much going to respawn in the span of like 25 to 30 seconds. That's pretty much even that. I think that's pretty much the time Karthus clears his entire jungle, if you were to kite all your camps with you and do as much damage whilst you're walking. So your camps are gonna respawn pretty quickly after each other, so a little bit of extra time lost there isn't a big deal. Always try to switch up the way you're clearing to a objective or to somewhere you think the enemy is gonna fight or be. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Right here, we are like they're engaging on mid lane, which, I mean, yeah, our mid lane or slash bot lane that are mid right now aren't that strong. So if I was the enemy, I'd probably opt for them as well, since they are pretty free kills. I think about this as well. I think, well, I'm just gonna see. I see this misfortune here, so I'm like, well, we could try this. Camille might be able to flank, so we see what happens. So I walk mid lane right now. We see the Gragas get like engaged with the Leona on the Thresh, which is honestly fine, because they now blow their cooldowns on these two, and I don't get like any repercussions for it. So the way you see me position right now is the way you want to position in every single team fight, whether it's right now late game. Like late game team fights, it's the same way. You just want to stand at a good distance where you can like put your wall down. Don't stand too close so that the Gragas or the Leona, for example, could E onto you. I see a lot of Karthus players like think about, well, I should just use my passive, right? That's not really how that works, because if you're going to use your passive, you're going to keep walking forward, and then I would have probably died to these two even if I would have killed Misfortune. Now then, of course, I would still be able to do a massive amount of damage to both of them with my passive, but that's not really the goal here. The goal is, of course, to try to survive, because you do not want to give a shutdown gold first, and if you're dead, you're not going to be able to get experience, which is also not ideal. So right there, I just did as much damage to Misfortune as possible. I landed 2 Qs, which is pretty much her entire HP bar. And that's also why staying safe in team fights is very, very key, because landing more Qs or being able to get more Qs off is gonna just do way more damage in any team fight than you would in like one time your passive is up. So being a little bit of a backliner is better there. Now right here, the Aphelios stands in a pretty good position. Now the Gragas is trying to save his Misfortune, which is understandable. Like, you guys might be like, wait, this Gragas is just hard inting at this point. He's not really doing that, because Misfortune is worth 300 gold shutdown, like as bounty. So if I were to get a kill on her right now, I get 600 gold from that kill, which is really big on a Karthus. If he can prevent me from doing that, and also I'm pretty squishy, so if he lands that body slam on me, he's most likely to just one-shot me as well. Then he can't, like, he prevents me from killing Misfortune, but he also kills me for shutdown gold. So either way, this play is worth it for Gragas, and it's respectable. Now the biggest thing here is the way Aphelios plays this and positions himself, which is like really good. So again, some Qs, get knocked back. I see the Misfortune be really low, so I instantly just opt for the ultimate. Now Aphelios pretty much blocks Gragas from body slamming me, so I can get that off, and then Gragas dies as well. So even though you think that might be a very hard int play, I honestly think it's pretty respectable play from the Gragas right there to try to play with that shutdown gold right there, because if he killed me, he would have gotten a lot of gold, and I just now got a lot of gold by killing Misfortune. So I actually spiked up in this situation. So yeah, I place the Herald mid, and I instantly go to scout his bot side jungle to see what I can get. I could try to siege this, but I would gain a lot less than just... For example, if his entire bot side was up, if I would have cleared that really quickly, he would have been further behind, I would have gotten a bigger lead, and they really don't need me in a siege at this point. We just killed like 2 or 3 people, so that's pretty good there. As you can see me as well there walking with the cams. It's a very important thing. Now this is the back where I have a lot of gold. So Leanderies and a stopwatch. Now stopwatch again, a very core item. You can get a lot of value out of it just because it saves me from dying, which saves my shutdown gold, but it also saves my stacks on like a Magi's, or in this case, still the Dark Seal. I would have bought a Magi's if I had the money for like buying maybe something in a combination with Magi's and then some parts of Leanderies or something like that, because Magi's actually, if you're really fat, stacks pretty well, but in this case I just had the perfect money for this situation right here. So I opted for that. Also with a stopwatch you can play safe, but then if they hard engage you and you have your Eon for example, stopwatching is going to cost them a lot of time. It's going to deal a lot of damage to them as well with your E. And then if they were to eventually kill you, you can stall them really long with stopwatch. But then if they eventually kill you, they'll probably be low enough for you to get a free like pentakill with your ultimate. So stopwatch / Zoniax is a very, very good item on Karthus. We saw the Misfortune and Leona there, so I'm kind of just waiting here. See the Misfortune walking up. I slow her with a wall. Aphelios gets a root. And just one Q, as you can see, does like a serious amount of damage to Misfortune, since I'm pretty far ahead now from the way I've played it. Kept consistently farming, kept pressuring the Gragas wherever I could, using my ultimates to clean up fights towards the bot side, like towards the bottom lane in some situations and all that. And right now level 12, which is really good with 140 CS as well, compared to, of course, Gragas' 114. Right here, just taking some camps. I mean, I could potentially push this with them, but I also see a dragon respawning, so I definitely just want to clear his wherever side I'm on. Take those camps from him wherever I can, instantly go back, go and play for the objective, because objectives win games. See, just walking up. Right there, this is also a big thing. If you're walking to anything as Karthus, just anything, a fight, a objective, it takes you maybe 1 or 2 seconds extra to clear an entire camp in that duration. 1 or 2 seconds, like, it doesn't cost you anything. And even if you do it perfectly, it's gonna cost you nothing extra time-wise. Because as you can see, I'm just walking towards this objective right now, and I see a blue buff up, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna walk, Q, and put my E on, kill this, whilst I'm still walking there. It takes me, like, maybe an extra second, but it's still an extra camp clear. This doesn't have to be your blue buff, this can be any camp you're walking past. Just make sure you just farm as much as possible. That's really the goal of this champion. Just farming, getting as strong as possible, and being a monster late game. Because late game Karthus, there's no requirement for that. There's no guide. You don't need to know how to play that. You're quite literally just... The only thing you need to know is playing safe in teamfights. Don't using your passive like an idiot. And then just kiting it out and doing as much damage to the enemy as possible. Getting the highest damage value on a Karthus really isn't that difficult. Late game ultimates do like 1,000 damage per target, which is massive. Now we see a Baron respawning here. So my team right now, this is also like a big thing in lower elos especially. Like, we could maybe push this and try to end, but this is more risky than just doing Baron right now, which is free. Gragas died, there's no contest there. So we just ping for the Baron. This is gonna spawn in a couple seconds. Do the Baron and then end with that, because this is a more safe and guaranteed way. There was no way they could steal this, they didn't have a position for that. So trying to mindlessly siege is not what you want to do. In this situation, I'm kind of just chilling in a spot where I'm waiting for this trash to lantern either me or Urgold in, which is just not happening, which is a little bit awkward. So I'm just over the wall, trying to do as much damage as possible. Now, this ultimate right there you saw me just cast is mainly just to put the pressure on the enemy, because that kind of forces them to like either back off or hard commit to certain targets, but usually casting your ultimate like that will force them to back off. This ultimate is going to do complete AoE damage. If you use your ultimate before a team fight starts, this is one, good for your Magi stacks, because you're going to get pretty much guaranteed to get 5 assists. Or 5 assists, which is a lot of extra stacks on your Magi's. Maybe some kills here and there if you have enough damage. So leading with your ultimate and completely chunking the enemy team in the mid to later stage of the game is actually good, instead of just holding it for the longest time possible. A lot of Karthus players try to execute people with the ultimate, but that's not really like the most optimal play when it comes to late game team fighting. Just casting that ultimate on, for example, an AD carry that has no defensive abilities at this point is just going to chunk them for like 60 to 70% of their health, and they're unable to fight instantly. If you have any champion on your team that has like dashes or leaps or whatever, they can easily catch that ADC at that point and get a free kill and start to win the team fight. So leading a team fight with Karthus ult is a very valid play and something you need to think about. This is a very aggressive flash. You guys might think, well, why? But this ultimate right here pretty much cost their entire team. As you can see, this guy lost not that much because I don't have that much ability power yet, but like I chunked him for like a good, I'd say 30%, 35%, whatever this is. Here as well, she took a lot of extra damage, Ornn took damage, all this. Misfortune's really low at this point. So that ultimate just put the pressure on them instantly. Now Aphelios gets a good ultimate here, so with that I'm just going to flash over the wall because they're going to be snared. I can go over, put a wall down for the magic resist reduction, or the extra, like, yeah, reduced magic resist so they get extra damage. I just go in. I still have stopwatch, which is a very key thing here. Stopwatch would have saved my life if they were to have collapsed on me there. And that's just pretty much it. Now, this is pretty much the perfect example of how you should play a game with Karthus. Always try to go for those full clears. Look for, like, ganks and opportunities where you can. One of those tricks you need to keep in mind is that early game trick, get a little bit of experience, whether it's one camp from the enemy jungle or like a little bit of lane experience. That make sure you hit that level 6 at 6 minutes. And you can really power through a game focusing on objectives and all that type of stuff. Playing with your mid laner if you have an aggressive one, and cleaning up with your ultimate. Like, Karthus is really all that. It's just, he's a very, very strong champion. He's pretty much free low. If you were to play him like this, for like in most games, the lower elo you get, the easier this is going to get because you really have no contest at all. Like, people are just going to give you free stuff all the time. They're really not going to invade you or pressure you because they just will not be able to do it. You're that quick at clearing. So yeah, anyway, if you guys have enjoyed this video, learned anything from it, please make sure to hit the like button below. It helps me out a lot. Also, guide suggestions for champions in the future. The patch just hit when for the new champions as well, so definitely we'll be looking for those. Diana is coming soon. And yeah, see more guys from me. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!